literally haunt you for the rest of your life and beyond. It's important to do it right. It's best not to mess with it at all, as I have often said. And so now we start. We begin launching forth on perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn on the Ask Dr. Hal show. My dear friends, it is time for another chapter of The 13 Clocks by James Thurber. The story so far is that the Gullocks and Prince Zorn of Zorna have induced Haga, the woman who can weep gems, but for many years had wept no more, to weep the tears of laughter, not the tears of sorrow. Thus they got a great bag of gems, which the Iron Duke of Coffin Castle assigned them to find, but unknown to the Duke, in a fortnight they turned back into weeping tears. They do not keep their form of faceted hardness as do the tears of sorrow once transmuted into a gem, but it is utterly necessary to bring them back within the allotted 99 hours, so that the prince may win the Princess Saralinda and not be slit from his guggle to his zatch. In the black oak room, the torches flared and crackled yellow on the walls, and their fire burned on the lances and the shields. The Duke's gloves glittered. "How goes the night?" he gnarled. "The moon is down," said Hark. "I have not heard the clocks." "You'll never hear them," screamed the Duke. "I slew time in this castle many a cold and snowy year ago." Hark stared at him emptily and seemed to be chewing something. "Time froze here. Someone left the windows open." "Bah!" The Duke sat down at the far end of the table, stood up again, and limped about. "It bled hours and minutes on the floor. I saw it with my eye." Hark kept on chewing something. Outside the Gothic windows, thunder growled. An owl flew by. "There are no jewels," roared the Duke. "They'll have to bring me pebbles from the sea or mica from the meadows." He gave his awful laugh. "How goes the night?" he asked again. "I have been counting off and on," said Hark, "and I should say they have some 40 minutes left." "They'll never make it," the cold Duke screamed. "I hope they drowned or broke their legs or lost their way." He came so close to Hark, their noses almost touched. "Where were they going?" he whispered harshly. Hark stepped backward 7 steps. "I met a jack-a-dandy some 7 hours ago," he said. "They passed him on their way to Haga's Hill. Do you remember Haga, and have you thought of her?" The Duke's loud laughter rang the shields. "Haga weeps no more," he said. "Haga has no tears. She did not even weep when she was told about the children locked up in my tower." "I hated that," said Hark. "I liked it," said the Duke. "No child can sleep in my camellias." He began to limp again and stared out at the night. "Where is Listen?" he demanded. "He followed them," said Hark. "The Gullocks and the Prince." "I do not trust him," growled the Duke. "I like a spy that I can see. Let me have men about me that are visible." He shouted, "Listen!" up the stairs, and "Listen!" out the windows, but no one answered. "I'm cold," he rasped. "You always are." "I'm colder," snarled the Duke. "And never tell me what I always am." He took his sword out and slashed at nothing and at silence. "I miss whisper." "You fed him to the geese," said Hark. "They seemed to like him." "Silence! What was that?" "What did it sound like?" "Like princes stealing up the stairs, like Saralinda leaving." The Duke limped to the iron stairs and slashed again at silence and at nothing. "What does he feel like? Have you felt him? Listen." "He's 5 feet high," said Hark. "He has a beard and something on his head I can't describe." "The Gollocks!" shrieked the Duke. "You felt the Gollocks! I hired him as a spy and didn't know it." A purple ball with gold stars on it came slowly bouncing down the iron stairs and winked and twinkled like a naked child saluting priests. "What insolence is this?" the Duke demanded. "What is that thing?" "A ball," said Hark. "I know that," screamed the Duke. "But why? What does its ghastly presence signify?" "It looks to me," said Hark, "very like a ball the Gollocks and those children used to play with." "They're on his side!" The Duke was apoplectic. "Their ghosts are on his side!" "He has a lot of friends," said Hark. "Silence!" roared the Duke. "He knows not what is dead from what is dying, or where he's been from where he's going, or striking clocks from clocks that never strike." "What makes me think he does?" The spy stopped chewing. Something very much like nothing anyone had seen before came trotting down the stairs and crossed the room. "What is that?" the Duke asked, palely. "I don't know what it is," said Hark, "but it's the only one there ever was." The Duke's gloved hands shook and shimmered. "I'll throw them up for grabs betwixt the toadle and the geese. I'll lock them in the dungeon with the thing without a head." At the mention of the toadle, Hark's velvet mask turned grey. The Duke's eye twisted upward in its socket. "I'll slay them all," he said. "This sweetheart and her suitor, this cross-eyed clown. You hear me?" "Yes," said Hark. "But there are rules and rites and rituals, older than the sounds of bells and snow on mountains." "Go on," the Duke said softly, looking up the stairs. "You must let them have their time and turn to make the castle clocks strike 5. "The castle clocks were murdered," said the Duke. "I killed time here myself one snowy morning. You can still see the old brown stains where seconds bled to death. Here, on my sleeve." He laughed. "What else?" he asked. "You know as well as I," said Hark. "The prince must have his turn and time to lay 1,000 jewels there on the table." "And if he does?" "He wins the hand of Princess Saralinda, the only warm hand in the castle," said the Duke. "Who loses Saralinda loses fire. I mean the fire of the setting suns, and not the cold and cheerless flame of jewels. Her eyes are candles burning in a shrine. Her feet appear to me as doves. Her fingers bloom upon her breast like flowers." "This is scarcely the way," said Hark, "to speak of one's own niece." "She's not my niece. I stole her," cried the Duke. "I stole her from the castle of a king. I snatched her from the bosom of a sleeping queen. I still bear on my hands the marks of where she bit me." "The queen?" asked Hark. "The princess!" roared the Duke.